Hello everyone, McGee here with another draft battle analysis video and recap. This time looking at my week 7 match in the PGF against Zeritum and his team Skrelp is coming. As it stands, I am 5-1 in this league, having not lost since the opening week in which I poorly performed. I have been riding a 5-game win streak now and was just recently able to knock a game off of the last undefeated team in our division. So I'm looking to close out the rest of the season strong. It's an 11-game season, and we are in week number 7. So if I can secure a win this week, I secure a winning record for this season and have an outside chance of claiming an early playoff spot, although a couple of things would still need to happen that are outside of my control. But before we get into this match, we're going to take a look at the options that he had available to him and then the pieces I brought to best address it. So going over to his team composition, I'm going to adjust this slightly so we can see the whole team. So some of the pieces he has that are of concern, obviously, are the Mega Swampert. We're going to skip all the way down a bit. Mega Swampert, just because this is a very clear rain team, and Mega Swampert's a hard piece to address once it gets going. Liquidation in the rain just does a ton of damage. Can't reliably outspeed Swampert in the rain. Not really worth trying to do that. And then he's just got a lot of really good rain support pieces. So Pelipper, obviously, to set that rain and pivot around. Tornadus to enjoy the hurricane spamming for free without any risk of miss. The Kingdra also as a really good specs option gives him a really strong special attacker in the rain so that he can hit Hydro Pumps or Draco Meteors for really good damage or just pivot around with Flip Turn. And then he's got other good, interesting pieces that he has to work with, not as defensively bulky, but something that can work in the rain as well. We've got Heliolisk, who enjoys it with that thunder spamming, and I believe it has a rain beneficial ability that allows it to, dry skin. So dry skin to recover some health in the rain. So it gets essentially like a free 12% every turn in the rain. So it's just a really happy mon in that setting. The Alolan Persian and the Acelgor give him some really nice natural speed tiers to play with. The Flygon just is a decent dragon option, although I wouldn't say it's overly great for his team since Kingdra just does a better job overall, but it does offer him, I guess, some additional dragon option or additional ground coverage. It's a little redundant, but it's still something to consider. Girder, not overly scared of it. It has some priority that's of note, and we'll get to that in the match, but Girder itself isn't overly threatening. And then Darmanitan, which really just doesn't have a great time in the rain. It has a really hard time being able to click Flare Blitz freely. It gets locked into choice items a lot. It does a decent job pivoting around with U-turn, so it can be a good momentum on, but it just doesn't really enjoy the weather all that much. So it's in a bit of an odd situation. Anyway, that's his team. We're going to get into my team build. I do want to note, and you can very clearly see it, he does not have a fairy type. I have been talking about this all season as something I wanted to do. Regidrago has been looking for a good matchup where it can actually be effective without having to deal with too much, and this is very, very clearly the matchup. So we'll get into that shortly, but you can already see that this is a really friendly Regidrago matchup. So getting into my team, obviously, we've got Mega Mawile. Mega Mawile just does really good work week after week. Pretty much knock off, play rough, sucker punch are the only moves I need to do a massive amount of damage. My goal here is to fish for a Swords Dance opportunity. There are a couple options I see in game where that is feasible. Something like a Kingdra that's used a Draco Meteor and can't do another attack because it's specs locked, or it's just half attack stat, special attack stat, so it's fragile and needs to get out. Girder, if it's on the field for whatever reason, I get a free opportunity on it. Great window as well. Tornadus has a hard time pressuring if the rain is out. It has Heat Wave as a move, but if it's raining, Heat Wave is not very effective as a move option. So doing it in front of a Tornadus that at best can only click Hurricane. And then Pelipper as well, if I feel like Pelipper is not going to want to stay in and just get a U-turn, because Pelipper doesn't want to risk getting KO'd early. And so you can usually scare Pelipper off the field because Pelipper just doesn't want to be taking any unnecessary hits, especially from something that can really threaten it and has access to Thunderfang. So a really reliable way to one-hit KO a Pelipper. And then Heliolisk, if Heliolisk was locked into like a choice scarf or choice specs, Hyper Voice, I feel like he could go for that. Basically, after a Swords Dance, I threatened to one-hit KO pretty much everything. I think Swampert's about the only thing that can safely be outside of range of Sucker Punch and reliably go first to KO me. You know, Tornadus is in trouble with Sucker Punch, Metagross is in trouble with Sucker Punch. Pelipper, I can address because I am actually speed creeping the Pelipper. I run a decent amount past it, so Pelipper really would have to run like 40 or more speed EVs to out creep me, just not something Pelipper naturally wants to do all that much because unless it's going to be like a Specs variant that's really offensive, then that might be an option, but otherwise I'm creeping defensive Pelipper. But otherwise, yeah, if I get a Swords Dance in here, it's just in a really good spot to kind of clean up a game. Rotom Wash. Rotom is really my best and only way of addressing these Swampert. So the nice thing about Swampert is Swampert has a really hard time getting health back, and this team doesn't really give it windows to get health back. There is no Wish support. There is no Grassmon to click Leech Seed to try to feed him some health. There's just really no way he's getting any health back in this match. So any health loss is damage he's not going to get back, or health points he's not going to get back. And so a Rocky Helmet's really beneficial in that regard. Defog to clear off hazards because I feel like he could stack rocks with namely Mega Swampert. Will-O-Wisp because I don't have easy windows clicking Hydro Pumps, but Will-O-Wisp is really easy to click on a lot of things. Volt Switch for momentum and pivoting because if I burn the Swampert, I'm no longer scared of the Swampert, and I can just kind of sit there until either Swampert leaves or it dies, and so I can keep spamming Volt Switch if I need to. And then Pain Split because there's a couple of bulky things I would enjoy getting health back from that have large HP stats. You know, Mega Swampert has a decent HP stat. Girder has actually a pretty solid HP stat. So there's just some opportunities to get health back in this match as well if I feel like the situation arises and I need to do that. Umbreon. Oh, let's get back to your moves there, Umbreon. Umbreon, it really as my only way of addressing Specs Kingdra. Umbreon's the only mon that can be 3-hit KO'd from Hydro Pump. Everything else will go down in 2 hits or less from Hydro Pump. So Umbreon really is my best way of addressing it. So max HP, max special defense, just the last little 4 into defense. Foul Play to help address Mega Swampert so it doesn't have any free windows to do much against me. Wish Protect Toxic, so just really trying to get my health back. And then Foul Play also helps deal with the Metagross, so Metagross doesn't have a free window to set up on Umbreon either. The Florges, kind of a mix between being somewhat defensive and then also being able to pressure offensively. So Giga Drain at that a special attack investment guarantees it at +1 Calm Mind. So after a Calm Mind, my Giga Drain will always one-hit KO Swampert. I believe, decently HP invested Mega Swampert, just because of how naturally bulky it is, can survive a Giga Drain. It'll do a lot, like 80% or more, but it'll still survive. But after a Calm Mind, it's always going to go down. Moonblast is really good coverage because his only answer to taking that Moonblast is the Metagross. Outside of Metagross, he just does not have an answer to me clicking Moonblast. Aromatherapy in case some toxics start coming around and I don't need to deal with them. And then I believe it's enough bulk to survive like a Flip Turn or something like that, or an Earthquake from Swampert, and then be able to Giga Drain back. A little bit of Spadef crept into there, I think, just to give me a certain threshold with the Hydro Pump from the Kingdra, and then obviously the rest into HP and special attack so that I can be potent off the bat. Greninja. So the nice thing about Greninja here is Greninja naturally outspeeds Tornadus by 1 point, which is really, really helpful in ensuring that I have a mon that can outspeed the Tornadus and if I need it to. And so Ice Beam, Scald, Dark Pulse, really good coverage, hits everything I needed to hit. And then U-turn for Momentum because Momentum feeds really well into my very last mon, which is, of course, the Regidrago. Like I said, he has no fairy type. So dragon moves are guaranteed to hit every time. He only has 1 resist in the Metagross. And so Metagross with an AV is the only way he can avoid a 2-hit KO from this. And this will 1-hit KO pretty much everything else without issue with the Dragon Energy. I'm a Choice Scarf so that I go really fast. I am max speed almost. Speed crept in a way that with the Scarf I outspeed Tornadus. I do not attempt to creep nor do I believe I could have crept the Aselgor. If the Aselgor shows up, Florges is going to be my lead on the assumption that the Aselgor leads, because I need to be wary of the Aselgor going for a final gambit on turn 1. Obviously, that doesn't impact Regidrago too much, but Regidrago won't outspeed it, so that's a concern. But Florges is just in a good position to deal with whatever shows up there, and if it starts to set spikes, then Rotom is always able to deal with that in just a few turns if necessary. But Regidrago, really just here to spam Dragon Energy. If it takes Chip, then Dragon Pulse. If I needed to go for a Mega Hit for something for whatever reason, Draco Meteor. And then Ancient Power just as like a last coverage move, although I really just expect to be spamming Dragon Energy or Dragon Pulse the entire match. So that's the team. That's what I assembled. We're going to dive into this match. Bring it back over to that. Let me adjust the camera angle on that. Perfect. So we're going to play this on slow because this is not a very long game, but I do want to explain the turn-by-turn play. So I'm going to lead my Regidrago here. There just really isn't a lead option that he has to counter with. I'm aware that the Darmanitan is likely scarved. And so if Darmanitan leads, it will naturally outspeed me. So I would not take that 1v1. Against anything else, though, I do not expect Scarf to be the item it's holding. Heliolisk has some incentive to carry a Scarf. It would allow it to get past the um, Greninja, but it doesn't do a lot of damage to my defensive pieces without like specs or something like that, just because Florges and Umbreon are so thick that if it's running a Choice Scarf Heliolisk, it's just going to do absolutely no damage to either of those mods, and they can just sit there in front of it every time, and Florges can even set up pretty freely. So Heliolisk leads. My assumption based off of looking at his team and looking at how he needs to break me, my assumption is this Heliolisk is not going to be a Scarf, and it's going to be Choice Specs or some other item. Suffice that to say, I feel okay going for a Dragon Energy on turn 1. I think I'm going to have the window to do it. I think he doesn't have a way to stop that. He doesn't bring Metagross. I don't know why. I think that was a missed opportunity to offer him small amounts of protection so that he could force me out a couple of times, and Regidrago just doesn't immediately apply pressure. But it's not there, so I'm going to take this turn 1 risk. Go for the Dragon Energy. I outspeed. I immediately one-hit KO. This isn't a Sash. This was never going to survive a Dragon Energy without a Sash, so it's immediately sacked. Already, Regidrago is crushing it. He comes in with Pelipper on turn 2. I think this is a misplay. The thing that he needs to do here is force Regidrago out. He has a couple of pieces that I think are capable of doing that. Girder has priority and Mach Punch and Iron Fist, and Girder actually has a pretty good attack stat. So it does enough damage where I don't want to sit in there and take the Mach Punch, so it can at least force me out. The Darmanitan, I would, if it came in immediately afterwards, I would assume the Darmanitan is a Scarf, and I would retreat as well. Both of those are good ways to force me off the field. The Pelipper, however, does not do that. The Pelipper is not going to outspeed me because I am Scarf, and my speed investment is such that a max speed Pelipper isn't going to catch me. So a max speed Pelipper with Scarf still wouldn't outspeed me. So I know without a doubt I outspeed this Pelipper. And so when Pelipper comes in, I've already been granted a second KO. He has 0 switch-ins to Dragon Energy. He has to throw something else away so that he can get Swampert onto the field with Rain to outspeed me. So by turn 2, I'm going to pick up a second KO because he just simply has no switch-outs. He sacks Alolan Persian. The nice thing about Alolan Persian going down is that was really his only answer to me clicking Sucker Punch on my Mega Mawile if Mega Mawile sees the field. Girder is not going to outspeed my Mega Mawile, and then nothing else wants to take a Sucker Punch. I probably have a chance at outspeeding Pelipper, so he's just not in a position to deal with Mega Mawile anymore with the Sucker Punching. So Persian goes down, 2 Mons gone in 2 turns. Regidrago has already proven his might as a good option here. Finally, he brings in Swampert. Obviously, I can't stay in on Swampert wanting to click Ice Punch. I understand what move it's going to carry. I understand what speed tier it's going to hit. So I'm going to flee to my defensive piece for the Swampert, which is, of course, Rotom Wash. He, in fact, does go for the Ice Punch. Very lucky for him, though, is that he freezes me, which is the kind of RNG he needs to get back in this game. Swampert really can't do anything with Rotom on the field. So that's the one benefit to Rotom still being on the field, is that even though it's frozen, he really just can't pressure me in a way that's meaningful, because Rotom can just sit there and inflict more and more Rocky Helmet damage on him for attacking. He can't click Earthquake. He only has Ice Punch and presumably either Liquidation or Flip Turn. And so he's just not in a position to put a lot of pressure on this Rotom without putting his Swampert at too low of a health range. Because once I get Swampert to around 40%, an unboosted Sucker Punch is a reliable way to KO Swampert. And so it's just in a really rough spot to want to keep attacking the Rotom even though it's frozen. I'm just going to try to fish you out of this. I'm pretty much just spamming Will-O-Wisp. I think it defog now that rocks are on the field and I want to address those. So he flip turns, still does a massive amount of damage, but I'm in a better spot now. I get the defog off. Um, and so I clear the hazard. Swampert didn't really accomplish anything. Swampert's now at 68% because it lost 32% for attacking me twice. Girder hits the field. I have Will-O-Wisp, but I don't know what kind of Girder this is. There's incentive for him to run Guts on the chance that Girder gets status, so now Girder gets the Guts boost, or it could just be Iron Fist, and I really have no way of knowing. So I'm hesitant to want to click Will-O-Wisp here, so I'm just going to Volt Switch just to get off the field and regain some momentum. My Mawile has Intimidate as its original ability before Mega Evolving, so I'm able to put some damage on it. He goes for Drain Punch. That does 40%. Outright confirms to me that it is going to be definitely be the Iron Fist ability just based off that damage output. So I'm assuming that that Girder is now Iron Fist, so if an opportunity arises later in the game to burn it, I will take advantage of that. Anyway, the nice thing about that damage output, though, is that Girder just isn't doing enough damage, and I know I'm going to outspeed my Mawile, which is to say I feel very confident I can scare Girder off the field on a presumed play rough and get a free window to click Swords Dance, which I do. Mega Walla gets a Swords Dance in for free. Swampert's not in a position to attack me anymore on the assumption that I have Sucker Punch, so it flees hard into Pelipper. He made the right call in that regard. Sucker Punch was ineffective. Pelipper hits the field. I'm going to fish for a Play Rough because Play Rough is super safe to click here. I feel decently confident that I'm going to have a chance at outspeeding this Pelipper. I don't think I outright die to Scald unless it's like a Specs Pelipper that's like max speed, in which case I'm in trouble. But if that's the case, I come in with my Regidrago and I click Dragon Energy and I claim another KO. And I just start playing the trade-off game if I have to, because I'm already up 2 Mon. So if it turns into a trade-off game, it turns into a trade-off game. I'm going to win that one. I feel pretty confident about that. So anyway, Pelipper comes in. My play rough misses. Really unfortunate. Pelipper's going to U-turn here, pivot out for momentum. Actually, really unfortunate turn for him, to be honest, because if he had been in that position to click Scald there, he could have really put my Mawile in a bind, maybe burned it, taken away Mawile's potency. Girder's going to come in here. I know pretty confidently I'm going to outspeed this Girder, so I'm going to click Play Rough again because it's a safe move to click and he doesn't really have an answer. It only does 22%. I'm going to click Play Rough. This Girder is going to go straight down and be KO'd, which really was his last piece that was able to endure a Sucker Punch and feel good about it. Swampert's going to come in. I'm going to click Sucker Punch on this. I feel like I do enough damage, and I do. Sucker Punch claims the KO. This game is really just kind of fallen apart for him. Darmanitan comes in. If the Swampert couldn't survive that Sucker Punch, no way Darmanitan is. So Darmanitan goes down to the Sucker Punch as well. And then Pelipper comes back in to reset the rain, but really is in no position to deal with this Play Rough. I'm going to click Play Rough again, and then this Pelipper is going to go straight down. So he really just didn't have the defensive backbone to manage some of the pieces I was able to bring in this match. He didn't really have a way of dealing with Regidrago. I mean, he could have brought AV Metagross, but the reality is that every time Regidrago hits the field for free, and I have a decent amount of pivot to work with between the Rotom and the Greninja, that I felt like I could get Regidrago onto the field a few times pretty freely, is that eventually the Metagross starts falling apart too, unless I really misplay things. And if it's AV Metagross, then Rotom's a really safe switch in on it because I don't have to worry about something like Toxic, because all it's going to be able to do is click attacking moves, and Rotom Wash is in a really good position to handle those. So overall, he was just in a really bad spot to control my offense, and I had enough of defensive answers to his rain core that I felt okay about this matchup. Swampert wasn't going to break my Rotom quick enough to not be vulnerable to Sucker Punch afterwards, so that felt good. And then The Kingdra doesn't show up, so I have a lot of flexibility with how I use my Umbreon in this match since I didn't need it for its primary purpose anymore, although it could still do pretty good work managing things like Darmanitan, Pelipper, or Alolan Persian. Probably Heliolisk as well. It would have handled just fine. So none of those become huge concerns. My two main offensive pieces that I intended for this match really do shine. I think Regidrago really could have gotten more KOs, but Mawile got an opportunity to Swords Dance and really just clean up. So Mawile, for the time being, moves up into the number one position for kills in the division. However, I'm the only match that's played this week so far, so I do not expect that to last. On a positive note, though, I do move to 6-1. I now secure an overall winning record for this season. The worst I can possibly do to close it out is 6-5, which probably still generates a playoff appearance, although I'm going to want to finish strong because the top two seeds get a round one bye, and I would really like to secure a round one bye and get an automatic appearance in semifinals. So I'm looking to continue to have strong matches and try to close out the season strong. But I am 6-1, positive 20 differential. Really, really happy with how the season is playing out now. I really am enjoying the team core that I have. I haven't made any changes yet. With this game, everyone, with the exception of Trapinch, who may never see the field, is now seen action with the Regidrago finally getting his debut. If an opportunity emerges for Trapinch as the season wraps up, I will definitely take advantage of it. But for now, really happy with how this team is doing. Really looking forward to closing out the rest of this season and seeing if I can make my first ever championship appearance and claim a championship. So stay tuned for more.